The NFL Combine is the ultimate proving ground for draft prospects, and Will Howard is ready to make his mark.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Hump Day edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. During today's show, we'll discuss the goal of numerous Buckeye defenders while they're at the Combine this week. But first, all eyes are going to be on Will Howard while he is at the NFL Combine. The way he played a year ago got every NFL team's attention, and he showed everybody he can lift up his level of play. He can be very efficient, and it's going to be hard for some of these teams to stay away from Will Howard because he played great football last year. And while at the Combine, no matter if it's a workout on the field or if it's an interview, whatever Will Howard is doing, I think every single step, every single word will help him raise his draft stock because numerous NFL teams are going to fall in love with Will Howard, not just because of what they saw last year, but because of the way his brain works and he's able to dissect things and talk like an NFL guy before he's in the National Football League. And Will Howard is a special player. And I don't think I've described Will Howard as a special player lately. Normally it's been all about, man, what he did was crazy. It was elite. But he has special traits, the kind of traits that NFL teams want from a quarterback. Before last year, Will Howard was a day 3 pick, probably a 6th or 7th round pick. And it's not just because of the numbers. He just didn't look like an NFL guy. He didn't. If you look at his numbers at Kansas State, they say one part of the picture. But the true picture was what he did out there on the football field. Nobody ever looked at Will Howard and said, he's a future QB1 of X, Y, or Z team in the NFL. Or he's a future journeyman, being a backup quarterback in the National Football League. Nobody said that. It was, if he gets drafted, he might not make a team. Or if he's a UDFA, he might not make it through preseason. That was the conversation. All of a sudden now it's Will Howard's probably going to be at worst a 4th round pick. But man, if he kills it in these interviews and if he decides to work out at the Combine, he could keep on moving up draft boards because that precision, that ability to make the right decision, to make the right read, make the right throw over and over and over again is exactly what NFL teams want. But also they want you to show up prepared. Not just what they saw last year, not just what they saw and heard from Ryan Day. They want you to show up prepared to the biggest job interview of your life. And Ryan Day recently talked about Will Howard and some things that he learned about Will Howard prior to really coaching him at Ohio State. Is that Will Howard's brain, he sometimes sounds like an NFL guy, the way he's able to recall plays from the past, being able to dissect things right in front of you, being able to say, oh, no, this is why this happened and that's why that happened. He didn't sound like a college kid. And as, let's just say, the Browns or the Bengals or the Indianapolis Colts or Detroit Lions or fill-in-the-blank NFL team is able to sit down with Will Howard, what they're going to find is that Will Howard might not have the traits that they want from a QB1, but it's going to be hard for you to move past him and not move him up your draft board because he just does so much right in the meeting room. And that's where a lot of Ohio State guys are going to kill it this week. Ohio State had 15 guys getting invited to the NFL Combine. Not all 15 will do on-field drills. I think all 15 will actually go out and do all of the interviews and do some of the press media availability this week. But not all are going to go on the field and work out. They're going to save that for the pro day, which is going to be towards the end of March. And I think it's wise to go there and not mess things up. Do what you need to do. Take care of your business and let the chips fall where they may. I think back maybe a few years ago now, there was a Buckeye player, I'm not saying names, you might know who I'm talking about as we get into it, that didn't wow people during the interviews. Well, He did wow people in the interviews, and it was a negative kind of wow. Wow. Why did he do that? Wow. Why did he leave this event? He was supposed to be here. And that was such a negative mark on that young man's path after this final Buckeye game, all the way going to the NFL. People were wondering if he was a head case, if he was a problem, who was advising him. I don't think you're going to have those issues with Will Howard or truly with anybody that got invited to the combine. Even if G. Scott Jr. and Josh Fryer got invited, I don't think you would have character issues or them being steered in the wrong way by the people in their inner circle with those two guys if they got invited. Because this Buckeye team, while they were led by older players, they had their heads on straight. They weren't about just laying an egg. And they weren't about letting somebody else call the shots for them. No, they called the shots and they did it over and over and over. And they were very, very mature. And that maturity is what an NFL team is going to want from a guy who was potentially, now he may be at worst a fourth round pick. Some say he could move up into the first round. And this is the time for him to do it. Especially when you know, I believe Shedeur Sanders is not going to work out at the NFL Combine, which I find very, very silly. Yes, I am a believer, and I think you all should be too, that your film speaks volumes, and your film speaks a whole lot more about you than what you do on the field at the NFL Combine or your pro day. That's true. However, there's value to working out at the Combine. There's value to going there and doing all the interviews and maybe even not doing some on-field drills, but you go out there and you're in your 40, you do some of your broad jump, your vertical, do some of those measurables. There is value to all of that. And so if you're going to be a guy that says, no, I'm going to let the film speak for me, you better hope your film is that of a Jeremiah Smith or a Caleb Downs or one of them dudes. Because if not, your decision to not work out at the NFL Combine could come back to hurt you. I think if Will Howard decides to go and throw, that would be great. It would be phenomenal. Being able to show off your precision passing and your efficiency out there in front of all NFL coaches on national television. Yes, it is the underwear Olympics. Who cares what it is? You're out there in compression shorts and a top, and it's skin tight. It's underwear Olympics, man. But what else is it? It's a time for these guys to show everybody in the NFL that they come in prepared. That's the one thing I think all these NFL teams are going to look at. Yeah, you may knock out of the park in your interviews for most of it, and you may do all the stuff on the field to make you look like you want to look. However, if you walk in there and the first time they see you, you're unprepared, you're a little sluggish, you may have gone out the night before, had a few too many drinks, next thing you know, you're not in your right mind, that could be bad. That could lead to disaster. I don't think it's going to happen with Will Howard or any of the 15 guys that are going to be representing Ohio State and pursuing their dream and the biggest job interview of their life to play football in the National Football League. I love watching the Combine. There's on-field drills. Let me go through this quickly. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday featuring Buckeye players. And if you're like me, like most of us, we're going to find time throughout the weekend and on a Thursday and Friday to turn the NFL Network on, to watch the NFL Combine, to see what guys like Will Howard, what a guy like not Jeremiah Smith yet, I hear this at a Quishad Junkies and Buka, to find out what those guys do on that big stage at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. Not only will Will Howard be there trying to raise his draft stock, I think he will be able to write some draft boards. There are a couple DBs that have a great opportunity to rise up draft boards as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team or a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use And when you win, guys, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you all for tapping and Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. While Will Howard is going to be front and center, and all NFL teams are going to be having their eyes on him, there are a couple of DBs at Ohio State that I'm going to be watching very, very closely to see how they conduct themselves, what they do in the drills on the field, and what their response is in regards to the interviews that they have with these teams. Jordan Hancock and Denzel Burke are a couple of guys. One, I believe, is underrated in Hancock. One in Burke that had a couple slips throughout his Buckeye career. Both of those guys collectively. Now, it's an individual effort, but both of them can rise up draft boards this week. And it can all happen in the interview room. I think for Denzel Burke, it also has to happen on the field because they're looking at your feet, looking at your hips, looking at your dip, looking to see how you turn and how you track the ball down. Looking at all that stuff for him because Denzel Burke had a little slippage this year and had a little slippage a couple of years ago, and that made some people nervous. It made us nervous about what Denzel Burke when he was out there on the field, as we should be, because when you see Denzel Burke and you know he can lock guys down, and you know he can predict and he's able to read even before the receiver goes into a break to know how to slow a guy down. All of a sudden this year, it didn't really work the way people thought it was going to. That's where the combine comes in. Yes, you're able to talk to NFL teams during the pro day, which I think is at the end of March. However, it's a little bit different at the combine. You get meetings with all 32 NFL teams. And I know I believe they spread them out throughout all the suites, and they have special rooms there at the stadium to make sure that they get a chance to talk to everybody. Every player they want to talk to, they can go in and have that type of conversation they want to have with these coaches. On to Jordan Hancock. I think Jordan Hancock's extremely underrated. Came in as a corner, a guy who I believe could have been an outside corner for Ohio State. He was their nickel corner for the bulk of his career over the past couple of years. The next thing you know, all of a sudden after Oregon, they bump him back to deep safety, a spot that I didn't really consider for Jordan Hancock. Then all of a sudden what you find is he can play that position too. So now a guy that was injured a little bit throughout his Buckeye career, got on the field consistently, a guy that was a big piece of why Ohio State's defense had a no-fly zone. All of a sudden, he's able to play three spots. Strong safety, you can even say four with free safety. He didn't really play much free, but you can put him at strong safety, at free safety, at nickel corner, at outside corner. That's the versatility NFL teams want. And I believe when it comes to Jordan Hancock, he's going to knock these interviews out of the park. Absolutely out of the park. And I believe right now, via some of the mock drafts out there, he's a day 3 pick, and I think that's a shame. I think that's wrong. I think if you let him slip to the 3rd day, you're getting a steal. He could be the steal of the draft if he falls into the 4th or 5th round. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Never in my mind did I ever think that there's a reality that Jordan Hancock's a day 3 player. What did he do? He made it very, 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 very hard for quarterbacks to throw at Ohio State, especially when he was a man-to-man or if he was had a zone and he was in that zone. Very, very tough for a tight end to enter Jordan Hancock's zone and to catch the ball, or a slot receiver or fill-in-the-blank player. Very hard for them to get right there in Jordan Hancock's bubble and to get the ball because he's that good. Now, the one knock for him and Burke, I'm going to get to Burke here in a second, is their speed. Do I think Jordan Hancock's a 4.4 guy? No. Do I think he's a 4.6 guy? No. I think he's probably more of a 4.55 kind of guy. Nothing wrong with that. That's fast. That's fast. I know in football terms that might be slower than a 4.3. Trust me, a 4.55 is still moving, y'all. even for guys in the NFL, they are moving. For Denzel Burke, his pass a little bit interesting. Because I think Hancock can simply do the interviews and kill it. Doesn't have to focus on doing any on-field drills. If he decides to do them, great. If not, I don't think it'll hurt him. It could definitely help him. Denzel Burke has to do everything he can do. Now, you may not want to do the workout at the combine. Look, I just say this real quick. I was talking to my dad over the weekend and talking about the combine, how many guys Ohio State had invited, talking about this, talking about that. And got the subject of guys opting out because Shedeur Sanders is not going to work out at the combine. That didn't sit well with me. Now, it's a little bit different than guys in college football that opt out of bowl games to say, I'm going to save myself from getting injured. I'm going to prepare for the NFL draft. Cool. Here's also the reality before I get back to my story. You can get hurt in a workout, just like you can get hurt during a game. While it might be more likely for you to get hurt during a game than a workout, you can still get hurt in a workout. So if your main goal is to avoid things that will potentially cause you to get hurt, here's a news flash for you. The thing you're doing to work out could lead to an injury. Not saying that particular thing. Something could happen. You get hurt. Oh, man, that's not good. Anyways, the Shedeur Sanders is not going to work out during the combine, and I think he needs to. In a big way. Definitely needs to. Will Howard doesn't? Jordan Hancock? I would say, yeah. Denzel Burke definitely needs to. Those two guys need to take advantage of every opportunity in front of them. Why Hancock was a better player a year ago, didn't have some of the slip-ups that Denzel Burke had. Take every opportunity you can to get on the field, sweat a little bit, run the 40, do some of the other drills, get your broad jump in, get your long jump in, get all of those jumps in, just so everybody knows how athletic you are. Do it. Absolutely do it. I have never been an advocate, and I hope I never become a person that is fine with players opting out of bowl games or fine with players not working out of the combine. To me, this is a part of the interview process, and if you're going to try to say no for whatever reason, that just sits in a bad spot inside of me. The one thing I think for Ohio State guys is that some of them, and I think a lot of them, won't work out at the combine because the season went so late and they're resting their bodies, and the next thing you know, wow, the combine's here. Literally, it snuck up on me. We have been in February. It's now February 26th, and that thing just snuck up on us. I did not realize we're already at the end of February, even though it's a short month. Cool. I didn't realize it. Ever since that, what was it, the solar eclipse last year? I believe it was ever since the solar eclipse last year, my brain has been having a bad time of keeping track of time. And then the national championship being played the playoff games being played on abnormal days, that threw me all the way off. What can happen, though, for Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock, let's get back to the subject at hand, is them allowing things to get them out of whack, to get in their way, to cause them to not be on top of their game at the combine. They must be on top of their game. I think Hancock should be a day two. I mean, at his highest as a day two pick, his versatility is going to be one where guys can realize, we're going to start you here. But if there's an injury, we're going to move you to another position because we know you can do it. Not we think you can, we know you can do it. As it goes for the other guys, we're not going to talk about all the guys today, mainly defense and Will Howard. But for any player at Ohio State, make sure you do everything you can at the combine to wow these NFL teams in a positive way, not a negative way. Another Buckeye that I think is going to have an easy time wowing some of the NFL teams that'll be all the NFL teams that'll be at the combine is Cody Simon, because that man has a secret weapon. We'll dive into the secret weapon next. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. If you're a new listener or viewer of Locked on Buckeyes, maybe an everydayer, a new one, or maybe this is your first time checking out the show, thank you. And welcome on in to the Buckeye Party. And make sure you subscribe and follow to Locked on Buckeyes on YouTube and on a podcast app if you're choosing. Make sure you hit the notification button on any of those apps to make sure you get notified every time a new show goes live. I love what Cody Simon did last year. It is one of those things that we'll be talking about for 20 or 30 years. He just kind of went back in time to remind everybody what it means to be a Buckeye linebacker and what it looks like to be a Buckeye linebacker. And Cody Simon, a guy a few years ago that wasn't a starter, but sometimes looked like he was the best linebacker the Buckeyes had. All of a sudden this year, he was the best linebacker the Buckeyes had. And it was a phenomenal thing to watch. Cody Simon had 112 tackles. That's a career high. 13 TFL, that's a season high. 13 TFLs, that's a season high. Most of the season. 7 sacks, that's the most he's ever had in the season. 7 PBUs, that's the most he's ever had in the season. 1 fumble recovery, 1 forced fumble. The fumble recovery is the most he's ever had in a single season. The forced fumble, that's tied for a season high. I go through all that on purpose because the NFL teams are going to do the same thing. Go look at his numbers, dissect them. Why was it a little bit different here? 2021, he had 54 tackles, and the next year he had 32 tackles. Why was it a little bit different? Why were things a little bit off? Why was this? Why was that? And all of a sudden, just like I paused there, they're going to pause a little bit and have a lot of questions for Cody Simon. Why the dip in production? Why all of a sudden this more than doubling your season high in tackles in your final year in Columbus, Ohio? What clicked? Why did it take so long? X, Y, and Z. And what's Cody Simon going to do? He go knock every interview out of the park, just like he's Sammy Sosa or Mark McGuire in the summer of '98, where them dudes are just knocking the ball out of the ballpark over and over and over again. And he is one of those guys, when I think about him, similar to Will Howard, he is going to impress these coaches in those meetings. And if they want to, I doubt they're going to watch film, but if they have him draw something up, he is going to knock everything out of the park because he does it so well. His leadership is not something I think you see on the football field all the time as far as it jumping off the screen. A lot of his leadership is done behind closed doors in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center or during just team time away from football. His impact is going to be felt for a long period of time. And if you could talk to Sonny Styles or Arvo Reese or fill in the blank player that was at Ohio State last year, they'll tell you Cody Simon is a dog. He's literally an extension of James Laurinaitis. Laurinaitis was better. Like his best year was better than Cody Simon's best year. But just like Hancock and just like Burke, Cody Simon's a guy that can use this time period to raise his draft stock. I think Cody Simon is probably like he should be a day 2 pick. He's probably going to be picked in the 3rd through 5th rounds because of his inability to consistently cover the pass. As the NFL is a passing league, you must make sure you prioritize linebackers that are good in pass coverage first. That's the one knock. If he was better in pass coverage, he's a day 2 pick automatically. He's a lock. Make him a 3rd round pick. Make him an early 4th round pick. It's better than 5th, and I think Cody Simon at his best is a day 2 pick. But with Cody Simon, there's going to be a dip in production they're going to bring up. There may even be some of those abnormal NFL Combine questions that get under my skin, and they're not even talking to me. I just hear that reported. Oh, this team asked this player or these series of players this abnormal question. This team asked so-and-so about his mom who's incarcerated. This so-and-so reached out to somebody's elementary school teacher and asked why you were like this at this age. All of this is geared to, some of these abnormal questions are geared to find out how you respond. And if there's anybody here right now that I think is going to respond in the best way when some of these abnormal questions are going to be thrown at him, it's Cody Simon. The one great thing, not abnormal, this is great, about that very topic is that all these guys are going to answer these questions in a great way. They're not going to shy away from it. They're not going to say, "Oh man, you want to do that? Cool. I'm going to fold. I'm not going to stick to my guns. I'm not going to do what I've been told to do, what I've been coached up to do. No, I'm going to fold under pressure." And that's exactly what these NFL teams want to see. If you fold under pressure, what are you doing? You're showing everybody that you don't have the mental fortitude that is needed to get through this interview. And if you can't get through this interview, how are you going to tackle 3rd and 3 on your own 13 when you're trying to move the ball down the field on a 4-minute drill? How are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle a game late in the regular season? It's game number 16. You got one more game left. You're on the verge of making the playoffs. Are you going to rise to the occasion or are you going to fold under pressure? These are things that I think some of those abnormal questions are going to pull out some of these guys. There should also be a banned list. Say these topics, or these questions can't be asked at all. Because at some point it goes away from trying to figure out who this person is to being downright rude. Ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody at all. That's a phrase I've been using for quite a long time. I'm going to bring it to the show. Ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time to even talk about somebody's grandma who passed away 5 years ago, or someone's girlfriend they broke up with and they were 2. Not really. You're not going to have a girlfriend at 2. But you know what I'm saying? Like, way, 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 way back in the Wayback Machine, you would pull this thing out and say, what happened here? Man, people sleep so much. People's memories are so bad. It's likely they forgot. Now, they are younger. It's possible they remember, but it's likely they forgot. The NFL Combine's fun. This schedule, I haven't gone over this yet. The schedule for the week let me just go back up on my computer. On Wednesday, today, all 4 D linemen that got invited in, Cody Simon will embark upon media interviews. The interview schedule is 8 to 11 today. Tomorrow on Thursday, Denzel, Burke, Jordan Hancock, and Lathan Ransom will do their media availability. Friday is the quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs for Ohio State. And then Saturday for the interview portion, it's the offensive linemen, Donovan Jackson, Seth McLaughlin, and Josh Simmons. The on-field drills are the day after those players talk to the media. So the D linemen and linebackers will be on Thursday. The DBs will be on Friday. The quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs will be on Saturday. And then on Sunday from 1 to 5 will be the offensive linemen. I would be shocked if Simmons and McLaughlin did anything on the field. Donovan Jackson, cool, go out there and do that. The NFL Network is going to have coverage of this all week long. So if you want to get some media interview sessions, and they'll air some of those. I read that 11 Warriors is going to have media interview coverage as well. So that's another great outlet that covers Ohio State. That you'll be able to get some interviews from the Buckeye players to get a little insight from them while they're at the NFL Combine. I'm for the drills, man. 3 to 8 Thursday, 3 to 9 Friday, 1 to 9 Saturday, and 1 to 5 on Sunday. Tap in, watch them things, and soak up all the Buckeye football you can get. While there's no football games being played for the next few months, we get the Combine. We get a spring showcase. We get to get a little bit closer to seeing what these guys will be in the NFL and seeing what these guys will be in spring practice to give us a little itch, satisfy the urge we have to watch Buckeye football. We don't get a real game until Labor Day in 2025, but spring ball and the Combine and the Pro Day, they help satisfy our desire to watch Ohio State football and see Ohio State players succeed. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes right here on a hump day and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, make sure you check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is almost here, literally a few days away, and Andy Patton and Isaac Shade are the people to help you get ready and prepared for the big dance in March. Follow, subscribe to Locked On Buckeyes and Locked On College Basketball wherever you get your fine podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes right here on a Wednesday. We'll see you next time.